Good morning, Matt Waldman. How are you this fine start of week 5?
Good morning, kids. Today's lesson.
Actually, that's totally wrong. It's the end. If we got a Monday night doubleheader, we're recording early Monday. So week 4 is well underway and lots of good things happened. How excited were you by the entire weekend, Matt?
It was a good time, I mean, certainly, some
I
of the
mean,
games were blowouts, but still, there was some fun things ahead, and there's some fun unveilings and some affirmations and validations, and things are getting a little clearer.
yeah, I think we're getting variance is still a very real thing, but I think we're getting some interesting occurrences. By the way, I'm Bob Harris. I'm at Football Diehard on the X device. He's Matt Waldman, also known as Matt Waldman on the X device, and the Blue Skis, both. Find both of our works at Football Guys. Find him at the Rookie Scouting Portfolio. You can also listen to me on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. I'm told that people already know us, Matt, so I won't dither further on that.
But I will tell you this. I will tell the people this. Over Bob's right shoulder, Bob's number one. Bob's number one. That's who's number one. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you who's not. The guy on X who thinks that you don't realize players don't run against cones in football games.
Oh, really? Yeah, okay. Somebody comment about my drills.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
well, there you go. Well, good for them.
It's always a joyous world. Joyous world this week starts with Ashton Jeanty has his breakout performance. It's the one we've all been waiting for. Put up huge numbers, the kind of numbers we've been expecting all along, but hadn't gotten. 21 carries, 138 yards, and a touchdown. He had a couple touchdown catches. Brings his total to 3 for the day and kept the Raiders afloat in what was ultimately a loss. Left him as running back 1 overall through the end of Sunday. Does this mean that Jeanty and the Raiders have turned the corner? Feel it or fuck it, Matt.
I think they've turned a corner, but I don't think it's the corner.
Right.
Because when you look at, Nick Whalen pointed this out on the X device last night too. When the long touchdown run that he had, the Bears were playing nickel, and they were playing nickel a lot against these heavy run sets, which had backup corners and nickel corners basically facing off against their left tackle, which is just an awful mismatch, and cleared the way. But the Raiders did look better in terms of their blocking when they were actually blocking big men against big men. And so that's a start. And if you give Ashton Jeanty just enough room to reach the line of scrimmage, he's going to get yardage for you, as evidenced in recent weeks. So I don't think we're about to say he's about to recoup what you invested in him ADP-wise in redraft, but I do think that it's going to be enough that you can start him with confidence.
Yeah, I think we needed to see him fare well in a matchup he should fare well, and he did, and that was it. This was the get right game. If there was going to be one, the Bears struggled to stop opposing running backs. They were giving up more yards before contact than Jeanty had been accustomed to, and that was part of the blocking situation. So, yeah, I'm feeling it exactly as you said it. He turned a corner, not the corner. I don't know if the Raiders are with him just yet. I think they're lagging around that corner, slightly behind him. Except for Max Crosby. Max Crosby's in front of the entire world. Good Lord.
When your center on a fourth down run or a short yardage run goes the wrong direction and allows Andrew Billings to be a human landslide into your running back, that's some bad news right there. Still got some things to work out there.
Feel it or fuck it, Quinshon Judkins is a fantasy running back 1.
I'm not quite ready to go there. I think a lot of people are, because they're looking at the usage, and they say, "Oh, well, I know that Dwayne McFarland talked about on Twitter. Well, he even earned this usage while they were trailing for most of the game, but for most of the game they were trailing by about 13 points, and most of the game was basically for a long 3 quarters, and then the fourth quarter was shortened to quite a bit because the Lions had Khalif Raymond return a kick for a touchdown. There were some turnovers that shortened drives, and at that point, I think you would expect for you would expect for Judkins to be kind of taken out of the game once you get down by more than 13 points. But they were inside of that at that point, and Judkins ran well. The Browns blocked with 2 tackles that were reserve level players because both their starters are out, and he did a good job of being able to get good, decent gains, worked reasonably well in the pass game as a leak option. I just think that Cleveland has to be able to, their margin for error for Judkins to be a running back one is still a little tight for me. I think it's safe to say he's a top 15 guy, a top 10 or top 12 guy. I think Cleveland can be taken out of their game enough that defense can't factor as much as you'd like, and the run game doesn't then either.
Yeah, a couple things. The great news that he's getting the work while Cleveland's from behind because that's their natural condition. At least for the foreseeable future. He doubled the snap count of Jerome Ford, 39-18. He ran more routes and got more targets. I mean, the workload is there, right? And that's what everyone's impressed about. I would say I would play him as a running back 2, or my expectation would be running back 2, but kind of like James Conner, at his best. He's got that edge of the running back 1 upside any given week. So I'll go with that too. I think, man, you've been correct on your first 2 answers. I hope I don't have to correct you soon, but so far it's going really well.
Well, I appreciate it because Hugo brought the trash can out here to try and let us know that bad answers were going into the trash.
If only you knew players played against players and not cones, you might be good at this. Yes. All right, Jaxson Dart looked good at this. Looked good in his debut, Matt Feeler. Fuck it. This was a positive start for the youngster because I know you hate the rookies playing quarterback.
I do. I would say that it was a good start by the standard of what most media think is a good start. But for me, no, I didn't think it was a good start. I think that from the standpoint of if we're going to go easy on him, which I think is what you should do in the first game, he ran where there were openings. He got the ball. He got rid of the ball quickly when there were opportunities to do that. He was accurate enough for his receivers to make adjustments to the ball on most of the plays inside of 20 yards of the field. But those were plays where I would have thought he should have been pinpoint and wasn't quite there. And he was not accurate at all beyond 25 yards. Some of those plays, did draw pass interference penalties, so that was good. And they were able to get inside. So he didn't melt, and that's a good first start for a rookie quarterback. So give him that, and I'd say and I'm not trying to say I'm giving him that for charity. A lot of guys melt in their first games. But I would say that, we remember Marcus Mariota having 4 touchdowns in his first game. We remember,
I don't remember that.
Will Levis having 4 touchdowns in his first game.
I don't remember that.
Yeah. And
I vaguely remember Will Levis existed.
We remember Drew Lock being a thing, Mitchell Trubisky being a thing, Desmond Ridder possibly becoming a thing. So I'm just not quite there yet with Jaxson Dart. I'm hoping he doesn't join that boy band. But
we ever thought Josh Rosen was going to be a thing, though. I guess.
I thought Josh Rosen was going to be a thing, but I should have known that when he said something so foreboding to Stanford on his last visit that they just decided we're rescinding our recommendation, and he had a turnstile of coaches at UCLA. Maybe that was one of those things where you look at the rumor mill and go, yeah, maybe there's smoke. There's some fire to that smoke.
Jaxson Dart looked good because the team got an unexpected win, right? The thing that they needed most was a win. So they're now 1-3, and they've got a favorable matchup, or at least a winnable game coming up. They're going to do it without Malik Neighbors. I don't know that that's going to make it any easier for Jaxson Dart. A lot of the things, he was already taking a thumping in this game, right? Like the hamstring was a little beat up. I saw him try to throw a stiff arm at somebody and shaking his hand afterwards. I don't know that he's going to make every great decision. So we'll see how he does with Darius Slayton as his lead receiver, along with crew Wan'Dale Robinson. Theo Johnson's emergence was good news for me because he was a light round flyer. But yeah, and Cam Scadaboo is going to, there are pieces of this offense I'm interested in. I don't know that Dart makes any of them more appealing than they were before. He looked good in his debut, though. I do feel that. Isaiah Bond, I feel like this is another attack at me, has more upside than my guy Cedric Tillman.
Yeah, I'm feeling that. I think Cedric Tillman, I know. I think Cedric's not a bad player at all, but I think that Cedric came from a scheme that that in Tennessee that's just very different than what is the reality of the NFL. So he still had more to learn, and I think that Bond is kind of more of an instant starter type of player who is already showing that to a fair degree. He made a couple of really nice catches. He had one play where he didn't continue his route that he should have, that nearly resulted in an interception. But I could see with Cedric Tillman having a hamstring issue, I believe that's what he has. Yes. This might be the opening for Bond to solidify an opportunity to stay in the lineup. Now, the thing with Bond is kind of the thing with Josh Rosen, is he's someone that off the field or away from, that you can count on in a way that he's going to be able to fulfill what he can do on the field.
Look, dude promised me the fastest 40 time ever and failed to deliver. That upsets me.
Yeah, I'm sure it did, because, that's more important than actually practicing something with cones, I guess. So
I think there's a lot of opportunity. We'll see what the quarterback situation is. There's clamoring that Joe Flacco needs to be yanked out of there. I don't know if I'm excited about any of the receiving assets in this, other than your guy Harold Fannett Jr., who continues to prove to be a consistent, dominant force in the Cleveland Browns offense, and probably the most consistent player not named Quinshon Judkins. So, but yeah, I'm like, as much as I might pretend to like Cedric Tillman, I've liked the upside we've seen in a very narrow band. Availability is still the best ability, and he has not been that. He has not demonstrated that ability just yet. Sam Darnold is in an ideal scheme for his ability. Feel it or fuck it.
I'm feeling that. I mean, I think the Clint Kubiak scheme's been great for him, because when you remember him at USC, one of the things that he did so well is that he could play outside of structure when he was in situations where he could clearly dictate what was going on with his arm and legs to manipulate defenders, and then he could throw well on the move in that respect. And I think that in this offense with Clint Kubiak, with a lot of the design rollouts that they perform, Darnold looks good finding backside receivers and manipulating linebackers or defensive backs in the flats to be able to find that second or third option on the move. He's an aggressive downfield thrower, and he's done a strong job of being able to attack downfield with the likes of Torrey Holton and JSN. So I think we're going to continue to see that with him. I think defenses that can keep him in the pocket and make him move within the confines of the pocket will probably have the advantage over him. That's where I think he can kind of become Sam Darnold-esque in a jet sort of way that isn't all that appealing. But it's a good scheme, and what they try to do means that they're going to be in it to win it, and Darnold's going to probably put up serviceable numbers at the very least.
I would agree. I was concerned about pass protection. The Seahawks don't tend to pay as much attention to the people on their offensive line as other teams do. Sorry, John Schneider, but it's true.
They tried this year.
They did try this year. Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I'm with you. I feel this one as well. Elijah Arroyo on that same team is emerging. I'll say this. I saw just enough highlights to think, this is interesting. What do you feel it or fuck it? An emerging threat.
I'm feeling it, because he does a good job of, winning in zones. He does what Noah Fant does, but I think is a little faster and catches the ball a little bit better. And so Sam Darnold showing showing the ability or the willingness to throw Elijah Arroyo open was a good sign. And then there was a touchdown that he scored where he got open against the underneath corner, and the corner couldn't catch up. And so the speed's there. The hands seem to be doing just fine. I don't think we're going to see instant starter ability from him right now, but I think he's a matchup play against weak teams with weak tight ends, and know that he's still going to be splitting time with A.J. Barner, who's so good in that low red zone area, that what you're hoping from Arroyo, he's kind of an all or nothing guy. Like, you might get one catch for 30 yards, and that's it. But you might also have a 3-catch game with a long touchdown, and he has 70 or 80 yards. Whereas A.J. Barner's more likely to be the guy that has 3 catches for 20 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, Elijah Arroyo, he is no Oronde Gadsden 2. I'll tell you that much, though. That guy's coming on. Feel it or fuck it, Gadsden.
I'm feeling that I probably need to go back and look at what I missed with him if this continues, because I felt like they're using him in the ways that he was used at Syracuse, which is fine, which is basically straight line routes, open field and zones, and he's making the catches, and he's doing a good job there. So I think in that sense, he fits what I saw on tape. But I want to see if there's more to his game than what I missed, and whether his game grows to the point that he becomes more than what he is right now. What he's doing well.
Yeah, opportunities matter in this league, and seems to have the coach's support. Atlanta, speaking of tight ends that we all know and love well, will finally use Kyle Pitts effectively. Feel it or fuck it.
Oh, I'm feeling that, and I'm hoping that I keep feeling that like for the next, 11 to 12 weeks, because first thing they did in the game, they threw him on a sail route, which is like Michael Penix's probably favorite route from what I've seen. That's what he's best at, is throwing those sails, corners, and the outside boundary routes. And all year, all I've seen Kyle Pitts do was like what they used to have Dalton Kincaid do, which is run 5 yards, turn outside, and wait for the ball and try and gain some yards after the catch. When you have like a rebounder who should be running downfield with his back to the quarterback and winning the ball that way. And so they finally did that. And then when they did use him in the flats, they didn't do it the way like Jonnu Smith tried to, they tried to do with Jonnu Smith, which is we're going to show you where he's going to get the ball, and you try and stop him. No, that's not really what you want to do with him. They did more of what you saw with Tyler Warren and with Tucker Kraft, which is let's put defenses in a bind in the low red zone. We'll do play action. They come off a block, and they're the only target, and the defender who was blocking them, who's supposed to cover too, is fooled, and now they're wide open for a score. And those are easy plays in concept for a guy to be able to make a catch, and they haven't done that with Pitts enough. And so the combination of going downfield to him repeatedly and being able to give him some easy touchdown opportunities, the way that they give Warren and Tucker Kraft, I think is a good sign. I'm hoping it continues.
I think I'm looking, I'm just seeing this tight end 3 through the end of Sunday. I would have thought we would have had a lot more tight end 3 finishes than tight end 23 finishes, and I don't know that we have. Hopefully this is the start of something good. And it's still kind of hard to shoehorn him into lineups on a weekly basis. Would like to see a little more before I start feeling him. Maybe I could say the same of Brock Bowers. 5 catches, team high 46 yards on 6 targets against the Bears. Brock Bowers is fantasy misery this year. Feel it or fuck it.
My dog wanted me to let you know what he thinks of this, which is that he says that a lot of people are going to need some toilet paper.
Some dude wipes.
Yeah, for Brock Bowers over the next 4 to 6 weeks. Yeah, I think that's pretty much what he's thinking, because he was limping on that knee, huge brace. Will he get better in several weeks? Well, Hugo's bringing the trash can out now. I don't know what's going on today. He really wants to be involved in this show. But I would say that it's going to be hard for him to stay healthy if they're going to keep targeting him and working him, and he's wearing this huge-ass brace and trying to play the level he is, limping as he runs downfield. I just don't see that getting better. I think the odds are it's going to get worse.
I feel like I spent most of the summer talking about how I didn't have any Brock Bowers because I didn't want to pay the historic premium. And I'd like to say this is why I don't want to pay the historic premium, except after I watched him the first game, I thought, damn, maybe I wish I'd paid the historic premium, right? So that guy is there. That historic level player is there. But I think it's going to be a struggle to play at that level, especially for the reason you cited. I mean, look, it's we have a big investments in players and a lot of things outside everybody's control. Jamar Chase is now going to be playing with Jake Browning. They're just like, I mean, there's things that happen over the course of a season that are going to change the trajectories, and this injury may be the one that changes Bauer's trajectory enough that we'll wish we had not drafted him so highly, and it's because he was going so high in draft. So there we have that. Lad McConkey. People are panicking, Matt. Is it warranted? Feel or fuck it?
Yeah, I think it's warranted. Not necessarily for his play on the field, even though.
But for what you invested in him.
Yes, that's exactly it. Because now what you have is you have a player in Quinton Johnston who has figured out some of the things that he needed to work on, but more importantly, his team figured out what he doesn't do well, and they minimize that into the offense. So now they're maximizing his skills, and that's working well. He's a better deep threat with his back to the ball than Lad McConkey will ever be. He is a better runner after the catch than Lad McConkey is, even though McConkey's good. And then they have Keenan Allen, who has years' worth of chemistry with Justin Herbert and still remains one of the better inside slot receivers. So McConkey's in a situation right now where he dropped some passes. He had some lackluster play that you don't normally see from him, and I think he'll get better there. But the problem is now there's two more options they can go to at any time when they had zero options last year.
Yeah, and you're leaving out the great Oronde Gaza too in that commentary. So I feel very put out by it. No, that's the whole panic.
Go eat a cone, Bob.
It's the same panic you should be having about A.J. Brown, right? Like, it's just like it's the investment. There was a spot in the middle of round 2 where your choices at wide receiver were A.J. Brown and Lad McConkey, and my choice was mostly to draft running backs at that point, even if I had one in the first round, because I just didn't feel comfortable with either of them. Like, I had no idea that it was what was coming in this passing attack for the Chargers. I mean, I think most of those drafts came before Keenan Allen showed up even.
Yes.
And Lord knows I had no idea that somebody taught Quinton Johnston how to catch footballs over the offseason. But that's always something we should be mindful of, Matt, is players do get coaching and work on weaknesses, I suppose, over the course of an offseason and maybe get better at it. But more, it was just like I didn't feel good about the price and thought it was going to be a run-heavier offense. So I was right for all the wrong reasons. Which is very fortunate for me, but not fortunate for him. And investors should be super worried just because this looks like how this offense works now, and that was not what you drafted him to be. You drafted him to be the receiving asset, the historic Greg Roman, John Harbaugh, hierarchy. There is one fantasy relevant receiver every single year. That is not the case this year. Panic warning. Feel it. Free Michael Wilson. I feel like this is a shot at Marvin Harrison Jr. Feel it or fuck it.
No, that's not a shot at Marvin Harrison
Jr. A shot at Kyler
Jr.
Murray. My bad.
It is a shot at Kyler Murray. Yes, I mean that's what the show would be about if we didn't have at least one shot at Kyler Murray during this time. No, I mean I just think that it might be a shot at Jonathan Gannon, and Kyler Murray, because I think that Michael Wilson is maybe one of the more underrated number 2 receivers in the league who just doesn't get enough opportunity. He makes good plays. His hands were the thing that we were most worried about coming out of Stanford, is that he had occasional drops and spates of drops. But he's a really strong route runner, and he does make difficult catches. He didn't have like the flaws Marvin Harrison had or Quinton Johnston had. It was just more concentration, focus type of issues where he had the drops. And I think if Michael Wilson were, for instance, in Joshua Palmer's situation in Buffalo, that's where he was playing, they might have an 800-yard receiver there easily. And then if he were playing, say, in Atlanta, and they could use one of those guys, one of the guys that they have right. If they used Drake London Moore as an outside guy and let Michael Wilson be the inside guy, that he might be a 900 to 1,000-yard receiver there.
Interesting. Emari Demercado was a good preemptive ad. I'm going to say feel it because he saved me a win because I had to use him in a starting lineup this week as an emergency pickup for James Conner on a very, very slim waiver wire. You think he can keep this work up as a third down back?
Absolutely, because he was used in the fourth quarter when the game was on the line, not Trey Benson. They relied on him as a receiver. He's a good runner. I think Benson it has more of a ceiling because of his athletic ability, and they like a lot of what he can do. But he still has some ups and downs with certain types of runs where he's not as patient with setting up blocks as he should be. And I think Demercado, they feel better about him in the passing game, especially as a pass protector and like an outlet receiver. And I think they're going to continue to go well with him. And he gets yards. He's consistent at getting yards as designed. So while he has good enough speed too, but while he may not be as creative as Benson can be at times, he's the guy that you know what you're going to get out of him, and coaches like that. And yeah, if he's still available on your waiver wire and you have Benson, you want to take advantage of that. Or if you have a running back that's out or you have some issues that you're worried about, he's going to get enough touches that he could warrant a start.
Yeah, he warranted one for me, and it was fantastic. And I feel like really bad that I missed an opportunity to do the Emari Demercado. Got to get back into my game. Luke McCaffrey in Washington is a guy I have on some rosters, especially in some return leagues where there are return yards involved. Looks like maybe he's got a growing role. Is he a legitimate ad now? You feeling that, or fuck it?
Well, for as long as Terry McLaurin is out, I think I'm feeling that. And for as long as Noah Brown is out, I would say that's still the truth, because while Chris Moore and Luke McCaffrey were both guys, along with Emari Demercado as the replacements, guys on my replacements column on Thursday evening, I think that, McCaffrey and Moore are kind of both combinations of what Terry McLaurin and Noah Brown do well, but McCaffrey has more of the McLaurin type of skill set to be able to be a little bit more of a threat downfield, and whereas I think Moore is closer to Noah Brown, but McCaffrey has enough of the contested catch and over the middle of ability that I think when McCaffrey comes back, when McLaurin comes back, McCaffrey can still have a role. So I'd say he's not a guy that you're going to be starting unless McLaurin is out and remains out, But I'd say that he's someone that it can be definitely on your bench and might still be able to give you occasional value as a flex.
Yeah, and just to be clear, McLaurin is considered week to week. They said no surgery for now. I don't know. I get nervous every time anybody visits the great Dr. William Myers in Philadelphia. They're calling it a quadriceps, but that's not the thing he operates on. It must be way high in the quadriceps. So we'll see what goes on with that. And I think you're right. I think McCaffrey is a utilitarian piece.
Is he related to Michael?
No, he is not, but he might as well be.
Okay.
For fantasy purposes. Once you go see him, probably not going to be a good outcome. Although, second opinion kind of things, I wonder about second opinions. When players go to get second opinions, it's probably one of two things, right? It's either A, they feel worse than what the team doctor told them, or B, they feel better than what the team doctor told them. So hopefully with McLaurin, it's the latter. And it sounds like it's possible. They said, so William Myers is the core injury specialist. He does the sports hernias and stuff. And the Commanders kind of acknowledge this. They still think this is a quadriceps injury, but that tells you kind of it's way up high in the quad. So we'll see what happens with that. Omarion Hampton. I think we've seen what's happened, Matt. I hope you've softened your stance after his past 2 weeks. Have you?
I think you're a pain way up high in the quad. That's what I would say. But no, Jack Mulqueen asked me that on X, and it's a good. I thought it was a good subject to ask about, because I think that we tend to get so much information from a variety of sources, and then we simplify it because there's so much pouring in. So I think the simplified answer probably for a lot of people when they think of my view of Omarion Hampton is, you don't like Omarion Hampton, or you hate Omarion Hampton, because somebody here simplifies these for me when I answer them. But the thing is I don't like Omarion Hampton as much as most people did. They saw him as as legitimately equal in talent to Ashton Jeanty, and I didn't think that was the case. I thought there was a clear gap between those two. And from the past 2 weeks, what I've seen hasn't softened my stance on that. I see Omarion Hampton as a good running back who can start for a team and give you production as long as you use him to fit your system in a way where you don't ask him to change direction a lot behind the line of scrimmage or in traffic. You just give him a nice crease to be able to run through, and he can be a battering ram with speed that can get past the safety if he gets enough of a runway. That's exactly what we've seen. And last week what we saw was that Najee Harris actually was outplaying Omarion Hampton before he got hurt. So I have the same stance, but the stance shouldn't, if you thought the stance was I hate him and you shouldn't have him, no. My stance was he's probably not going to be the featured bell cow if he has another back in the lineup who can complement him and do the things that he can. They don't have a choice right now, so they're using him in that way, and you're getting the best case example for Omarion Hampton. I would probably even say he's a sell high in Dynasty as he starts to accumulate strong production over the next several weeks.
Well, much like you've learned, working with a Harris can be tough. They're usually really good at what they do. They can be a limiting factor for their partners. All those things are true. So
unless you have a good combination of footwork and power, and then it works out just fine.
So my concerns about Omarion Hampton were not based on anything other than the presence of Najee Harris and the notion that they would split heavily. The full workload has served him well. Will they start trying to lighten that up? Are they still looking for a player who can maybe help them alleviate some of that workload and think they don't have him right now? All those things are possible. But for right now, I've softened my stance. But it doesn't matter because I wasn't drafting Omarion Hampton where he was getting drafted because Najee Harris was there. So kudos to those that did, unless I'm playing them this week and then fuck them. Can we put Brian Thomas Jr.'s wrist injury to bed now?
Yes, I think we can. I think there was some question. I had a good question on X last week from a woman who asked me, here's a video clip of him switching the ball to his left hand. I think that's where the wrist injury was supposedly at. And then as he reached the sideline, he suddenly switched it back to his right as if he wasn't comfortable with it. And I believe one of the doctors online also raised that question. But what I saw was that he switched the ball back so that he could spike it. Literally, he was near them, and he was already thinking about spiking the ball. From what I've seen of him catching the football, there's no way that wrist was really bothering him to be able to make the catches that he's made. And I know that he's dropped his fair share, but a lot of those were targets in the middle of the field with defenders, looming at him. And we've had this conversation. The bigger problem with Brian Thomas right now is that Trevor Lawrence still aren't quite on the same page with deep vertical routes, whether to throw the fade or to throw the streak. And even to this week against the 49ers, there was a play where Thomas ran deep and Lawrence threw the back shoulder. And they've had one of those every week. So that's what's got to get better.
Yeah, I keep reminding people that, Brian Thomas Jr.'s greatest success last year came with Mac Jones as his quarterback, not Trevor Lawrence. So, I'm not saying that they shouldn't already have chemistry and that they shouldn't be on the same page and everything shouldn't be hunky-dory, but it seems like maybe it hasn't been all along, and they're maybe still a work in progress. They haven't worked together enough to have that kind of high-level chemistry we expect from our quarterback receiving duos. We'll see.
They're not
Bijan
us,
Robinson.
Bob.
What?
They're not us, Bob. They just don't have that chemistry.
Exactly. Well, of course, Brian Thomas Jr. has the great joy of not working with a Harris, so they are limiting factors due to their greatness. Listen, Bijan Robinson or Christian McCaffrey, feel it or fuck. Well, there's no feel it or fuck it. This is a choice.
Yeah. I think it's either way. I think you're good to go. If I was going to say for redraft, I'd still give the edge to McCaffrey because as much as that he had a bad game yesterday. Fumbled the ball, had some drops. The offensive line isn't doing great. He's still the elite player in terms of performance right now. And now they have their quarterback returning. And I think he'll get things worked out. And that the offensive line, I think, will get better. I don't think it's going to deteriorate. So I think that McCaffrey still has a bit of an edge in the way that they use him, and his talents are still strong. But Bijan Robinson isn't far behind, and if you'd rather bank on, from a dynasty perspective, you take Bijan Robinson all day. He's got at least a 4 or 5 years more than what McCaffrey will have, and I think that he's not that far away right now. Excellent with cuts, excellent job as a receiver. They're featuring him in the receiving game, and the best thing Atlanta has done this year offensively is find Bijan Robinson in wide open space running down the field as he catches the football. And he's already had like 3 or 4 long receiving gains with being hit in stride and working after the catch.
Yeah. So I would say, just from, watching the games, that Bijan looks like he's the more dangerous runner right now. I mean, we all know what Christian McCaffrey is, and Christian McCaffrey is maybe still a little more dangerous as a receiver, or at least more utilized as a receiver, although Bijan more than capable of that. I think the real question here is how would they both fare against a team of cones?
I don't know.
Right. From now on,
I got to read this tweet. This must be epic.
It's just, I find it rather amusing, someone injecting themselves into a otherwise normal conversation. Bhaysul Tuen isn't overtaking Travis Etienne this year. Feel it or fuck it.
I'm going to say feel it, even though I think Travis Etienne is clearly Mr. Outside in this offense. Most of his big plays came off the edge. And especially yesterday, whereas Tuten does a better job working inside. But the problem is that I don't think they're going to give Tuten enough touches to really overtake Travis Etienne at this stage of the game. So as long as Etienne is healthy, it's going to be a committee with Etienne getting the edge.
I'm old enough to remember when Tank Bigsby was part of this conversation. Now I'm not even sure if Tank Bigsby exists. I think things can change in the NFL, as Jerry Glanville said. Not for long. We'll see what happens with Bhaysul Tuen and Travis Etienne Jr. I think for right now, I don't disagree with your assessment. Just football's weird, man. And we'll finish it off with this one then, because football's weird. Robert Saleh and Liam Cohen mixed it up a little bit. There was words after the game because Saleh said something about or Cohen said something about Saleh stealing signs, or Saleh said something about Cohen stealing signs. Where are you at on the stealing sign drama?
Oh, it's stupid. And I think Honest NFL on X is a good source for that. He is a former quarterback coach. I think he worked with, or a former offensive assistant or coach, and he's a former quarterback who did work with the Eagles for a while. And one of the things that he shared about that was basically a few sheets of paper where he had shown signs that he had stolen, or and how the teams do this every week. They have certain things that they put together from just watching broadcast and listen and observing on the sidelines. And they literally have things like, when the player taps his head, this is what that means. When they say this is what this means. And he said everybody in the league does this. This is not so much of a drama as it meant out to be. And the fact that they even got into it like this was just stupid.
I'm going to go with Kyle Shanahan on this, and I don't often go with Kyle Shanahan, although I love his offenses. His commentary on this was, I didn't see what happened, so I'm not sure, but Liam shouldn't be so sensitive.
Yeah, probably not. Shouldn't have to be.
That.
Yeah, I'd feel that.
All right, that's it for this week. We'll be back next week with more feeling, more fucking, and maybe some stupid drama to go along with it, and probably with more cones. I'm Bob Harris. He's Matt Waldman. We're done here. Love you, Matt. Bye.
Love you. Bye.